Our guest today is Mikayel Ghazaryan. Mikayel worked as a software architect before he joined Trivago. At Trivago, he worked on Amazon Web Services and was regarded as an expert in it. Now, he is the site reliability engineer at Shootflex. In this episode, we discuss a lot of things. That includes the work culture of Trivago, how easy or tough it was to integrate as an international here in Germany, challenges that he faced, and how he overcame that. And of course, we discuss the red flags during interviews and his personal tips for the same. Hi, this is Anirban Saha, and I welcome you on behalf of the team to one new episode of Season 2, where we interview a selected few professionals in the domain of data science and converse about what it takes to get a job in the real world. If you like our work, hit the follow button on our LinkedIn page. The link is in the podcast description. Also, to share with us your feedback and listen to the other episodes. Let's get started. Mikayel, thank you so much for agreeing to have this conversation and to interact with the students.
Thanks for having me.
We would structure our conversation today in a way where we touch topics of CV, cover letter, master thesis, etc., but focus a little more on your experience as an international in Germany and focus heavily on technical interviews and the mistakes that people make, mainly first timers. Would that be okay with you?
Sure.
So let's start with this. You were a software architect earlier. What made you move back to software engineering and that to working on the cloud?
Yeah, so I think this is a wider question about why I decided to move out from Armenia and start working in Europe. So I realized that my growth pace kind of slowed down here because I wasn't able to go into a wider variety of the topics and I was kind of stuck in the same framework. So my main motivation to move out from Armenia was to find something new where I can grow myself grow as a professional with a same pace that I was doing while working here, while working in Armenia. And then what I realized that, okay, that I should go to a bigger markets and I chose Europe over United States because I already had experience with working for a German company before. That was like Lycos Europe back in 2005, 2009. And that's kind of was an obvious choice to go to Germany because I already had an experience with the country, with the people and culture. So I started looking to job in Germany, and then I found the job in Trivago. And that was a very good thing for me because in Trivago, I started to learning completely new branch for me because I was interviewed as PHP engineer and I entered Trivago as a PHP engineer. But from day one, I ended up in a project in a project where we were migrating our current application to AWS cloud. And was kind of what I was looking for. So a new technology, new setup, and then AWS was something which really I found interesting, and I invest a lot of time to get into the technology and grow as a professional inside this cloud setup. And and we started doing different things, and I ended up doing also like data science related project, like data engineering, and at the end I was like working as a cloud engineer, mostly focused on the data. I don't know if that answered your question, but I think it also laid a good background about like what I was doing and what I'm doing now, like why I moved and what I was doing there. So we can maybe move on with different questions, and then I will give more details.
Very quick follow-up question. Like you, like me, there are many other people who are changing domains of work. They did, like, even I started with PHP frameworks back in 2008, 2009. What would you like to give them? Because they are migrating from one thing to another. How did you adapt to something extremely new?
I think this is more question of the mindset, right? So if you are eager to learn new things, if you are open for new things in the profession, it's very important to do so, because when you stuck in the same setup for years, it's kind of like you started to live in this bubble. So that might be really comfortable to be there, but it also kind of draws you back from many interesting things that are out there. So, and I will just encourage people to find a nice way of trying new things. And this is why I also specifically thankful for Trivago, because in Trivago there was a really good foundation and culture where people could start learning new things in a safe way. So as an engineer, you want to deliver things, right? So you don't want to screw up big things while learning new technology, and it's kind of inevitable because you learn by doing errors, and the failure culture and the learning culture in Trivago was like really brilliant, and I find myself really lucky to be in that kind of a setup where I was able to do this learning in not that stressful way.
uh, Not just you, my other friends in Trivago speak a lot about the work culture there. There is also a successful podcast series on just the Trivago work culture and leadership. Would you like to tell us a bit more on the work culture, how it is different from other companies that you worked in, and what are the things that you like the most? I mean, this is not an advertisement of Trivago, but I have heard so much of their work culture that I thought it's better to put it.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, we can talk hours about this, right? As you already mentioned, there is a specific podcast dedicated to this Trivago culture, and I know what you're talking about. It's the podcast by Trivago founder Rolf, who's doing this series, and I found them like really interesting to people, and I encourage them to go and listen to them. But what I would like to say, like, first of all, the core values are really important for the company, and this is what we had in Trivago and what really worked there. It's what wasn't just words. Company was really lived by these values, and just to give a couple of examples. So one of them is the trust, which is the most important thing. So you should trust your peers. You should know that they do whatever is best for the team, and you behave the same way. Another very important thing is authenticity. So you were really encouraged to bring your specific background to the team, right? So you shouldn't blend in and adapt. You should also stand out. So you, on one way, you should of course blend in the workflows and like procedures, but from your unique point of view, you should really bring it to the table. You should raise your voice to bring a different perspective. And this is also like really important, because Trivago has so many talents from all over the world, and I think this is what makes it like really unique, because you had like so many different perspectives on the topic. Third one is, which I like probably the most, is the power of proof, right? So you were encouraged to ask questions to understand why is this happening. So people should be able to, like, give a good logical foundation or explanation for the decisions made, be it like business decisions or technical decisions or whatever. And this also sparks a healthy discussion around the decisions which are being made. And you could challenge everyone, starting from your peer, ending up with CEO or CTO, right? So like if you have questions about any kind of decisions there, you could really raise your voice and get explanation of the thought process. So you could also have your input there, and this is like really important. Another thing, like, which is probably we need to say that which amazes me a lot. So when I joined Trivago had around 1,400 talents, and we, with this large scale company, we still had a flat hierarchy. So it was very much like startup like community, let's say, because for example, I remember like there were many different restructurings also in Trivago. So they tried different team setups, and if it didn't work, they changed it a lot. And this is also what I liked a lot, because if something doesn't work, people should have enough freedom just to change it and find the best setup where how to organize teams and domains and everything. So what I'd like to say is that, I don't know, there were times that as an engineer, between me and CEO, there was like 2 or 3 people in between. And like, this is a very flat hierarchy for the organization of that size. And this is what I was thinking, like, it's inevitable. When you grow, you should grow into more vertical hierarchy, because it's really hard to make the decisions. It's really hard to get stuff done and all the things like this. But Trivago proved me wrong, and I'm really happy that I was wrong there. I see that example, that at that scale, you still could have quite healthy and democratic process inside company on decision making, on delivering value, and all the things like this.
What I understood, the impression that I get from whatever you said right now is a lot of importance is given on the person and the person's views, and a lot of freedom is also given. So when you have a flat hierarchy, and the expectation would be that every team member performs to their best. And you mentioned about trusting your peers. I mean, if I have to think from the management's side, that's a lot of investment of trust. How impactful is this work culture when it comes to software professionals, you know, and our mental health, our mental well-being? This should have a good positive impact, or did it scare people away? Because to a few, it might be a scary amount of freedom and responsibility, isn't it?
It is. So maybe I should start with a little bit like far away from the exact point of the question, right? Like, another very important value is intrinsic motivation. So people are expected to have this motivation from themselves, and they should be able to, come up with initiatives, come up with ideas, and propose them to the team. And when you say like the focus given to a person, I would agree, but as much as the person is the part of the team, because I think the minimal minimal working unit is a team, because person is a part of the team, and the main idea was that the team should perform in a way that, like, if you will take, let's say, values of each member of the team and the sum of them, like, so the team value will be more than just the sum of the individuals, right? So because this is the team dynamics, when people interact with each other, they actually bring more than they can as individuals. And for me, team was the core, and then it's up to you as an individual on how you can contribute to the team, because we should understand, like, even as individuals, there are ups and downs, there are different situations when you can be like tired and maybe underperforming. On the other time, you can be very in good shape and perform very well, right? So this is like the team dynamics, which should be taken into consideration, and is natural. And so, yes, as an individual, you will contribute more if you find yourself in the team very comfortable. So you can bring up the ideas, you can challenge the ideas. And what I like, that it becomes a team idea. So like, if the idea is accepted by the team, it's not your idea anymore. It's the team's idea, because it's a product of the collective thought. Like, someone challenged it, someone tried to break it, someone added some more things. Even if the original idea was belonging to somebody, at the end, it's the team idea, and then team commits to this idea and performs it. And then also teams takes the responsibility for the whole idea. And if we come to the engineering language, then it's like pull request reviews, it's the creating the diagrams together, design documents, all the paperwork around the project. So this is done all together, right? And Then it's just a matter of execution. And execution is another thing, right? So like first you create the whole framework around the project. So you create like you should answer all the questions, why you are doing this, how you are doing this. So that's the design processes and stuff like that. And then you go to the implementation phase, which is basically the heavy lifting is already done. So if you are good enough at your job, executing shouldn't be a big problem after you already did the heavy lifting with the design, everything.
I'll just add a very quick follow-up question, and please answer it very quickly as well. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
You mentioned it's a multicultural team, right? But at the back of your head, when you came to Germany, you had it that you are an international trying to integrate into a team in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
How easy or difficult was it? Because you came from Armenia, I come from India. A lot of our students today who are in this meeting, I see a lot of names from a lot of places, which include the nations in the subcontinent and eastern part of Asia. So, how easy or tough was it to integrate as an international?
I mean, in Trivago, it was quite easy. There were very well thought processes about the integration, some team activities and stuff like that. So for me, it was like really easy to integrate to the team.
Okay. And like we discussed earlier, you changed the field of your work. So, what kind of problems did you face, challenges you faced, and how did you overcome it?
So there were like two type of challenges for me. One of them was that it's a totally different setup, which I'm not used to. So technologically, it's the cloud, and then it's the new, like new setup, new way of working, and this kind of things. And this is more like a changing of way of thinking. And another thing, and another type of difficulties is the scale. So Trivago, like I was in the visual content team, which basically was responsible for all the images that you could see on the website, and we deal with a huge amount of the images. Just to give you an example, we had around like 40 million active images. No, wait a minute. It was around like 60 million active images, and from them 30 million was online images. And the difference is that you have kind of a inventory of the images, but you don't show all of them on the galleries, right? So you show only, let's say 25, 30 images per hotel, but you have more. And then like this is the scale. And we were also doing imports from our partners. The biggest import could be like 3 million images at once, or 5 million images at once. So like if you get the whole inventory from one partner, it could be like this kind of a scale. And that was like very interesting challenges where I learned a lot.
You learned a lot. How?
By doing, failing, and iterating over that. So like you do, you fail, you correct your errors, and then you iterate.
And when you faced failures, how did you keep yourself motivated?
We had a really good failure culture. So basically the failure was also like not a personal level thing. It's, of course, you take personal responsibility for what you do, but it's also kind of a not that tough, because you know that people can fail, and if people fail, that means that something wasn't thought really well. So there was some flaws in the process, in the flow, and then what could we do there is to, okay, first of all, you need to fix the error, and then you should think about how we can change the flow not to have this error again. And this is what approach to the failure in the company, and I like it a lot, because yes, you have the personal responsibility, and as an individual, you wouldn't like to find yourself in that situation again, right? But sometimes it's not only on your scope, it's on a bigger scope of the whole teamwork, or the domain work, or the process, how it was organized. So, and that's the important part. So how to fix things and how to not find yourself in that situation again.
Okay. You worked on the cloud, and cloud migration for data science comes under ML ops. What should newer entrants or freshers,
Mm-hmm.
what should they focus more on when they are trying to enter this field?
So of course there are like basics which you should kind of know when you focus that you're gonna work on this profession, right? Like this is like the basic frameworks, some basic technology which is there. Uh, this is like the hard skills which probably you already know, but I would say the most important thing is to be ready to learn a lot and fast. Because the field is so big and it's so different depending on what exactly you are doing there, right? And then also the freshers are not expected to have really big working experience, right? So I would say when you enter the field, when you enter like the company and you land on a real job, don't be afraid on doing different things, which probably in your head wasn't part of your profession, right? Like maybe you were thinking, okay, I'm data scientist. I don't need to know like the data engineering part of it, right? But be open to learn these things, because at the end of the day, it will make you better in your profession, even if you will not need it that much.
Okay, but since this episode is more about interviews,
Yeah.
what should the aspirants prepare for from the interview perspective?
Yeah. So for me, it's a little bit different, a little bit difficult to talk on the aspirant level, because I think most of the students was entering Trivago as a working student, right? So and the process was a little bit different. So what I was participating more was like hiring to the position, and maybe like the people who are like finished the university. But what I would like to say in general, right? It's a matter of expectations management a little bit, right? So we should understand that like which position you are applying to. So like probably you cannot apply to the mid-level engineer or senior level engineer. You should start with the junior, right? And then the expectations should be that yes, you have your hard skills there and you have your soft skills there, but the most important is that your attitude.
Um, the topics on ML ops that
Mm-hmm.
aspirants or even working students should focus
Mm-hmm.
on during an interview.
Mm-hmm. You want like specific topics on MLOps?
Yeah, if you have.
Yeah, I would say like if it's like, because it's also different from cloud to cloud, right? But if we talk in AWS, I would say go do your readings on SageMaker. This is one of the main tools there. And then it depends on the company and the framework they are using, maybe TensorFlow, Keras, this kind of things.
Okay, we will go to the main part of today's discussion.
Mm-hmm.
You have hired, right? And you just told that you have working students as well. So you have hired when you were in Trivago, and you also mentioned that the hiring process at Trivago is slightly different from a lot of other companies that you have seen. Would you like to tell us a bit about the hiring process at Trivago?
I mean, first of all, I said I didn't hire working students. Just a little correction, right? So I was mostly hiring for the engineering position. So for the question, I don't think like the process in Trivago that much different from other companies, but yeah, I mean there are like specifics. So that also depends on the position, but for the latest thing that we were doing for the data engineers, the recruiting process was the following. So basically, we were sending out the case study where the engineer should be able to come up with the two parts of the case study. First part is to draw a diagram of the solution for the case study, which states the problem there, and then implement one of the components. So basically, we are trying to evaluate both like skills, designing skills and coding skills there. And then after implementing this case study, we had like two different interview steps, one for the design process and one for the code skills, right? And then I do understand like all the case study have this problem because you are not able to fit all the context into the case study, and then people find themselves like really hard to narrow down to one exact solution because they may miss some information to come up to the final decision how to draw the design. But at the end, which is more important for us, is that you should be able to explain what was your thought process there and why you ended up with this kind of a design and what was the things that you considered while doing this design. Like, we would really like to understand that you thought other designs as well, but discard them for particular reasons, right? So, and the more you put effort into this thing, the better it will be for learning the job, because sometimes people just draw the design, but they don't talk about, okay, this will work, but then, okay, what are the metrics that we would like to monitor? What would be the alarms for the system? Because when you run the system, you not only build and put it there and then it works in the vacuum and just implements what you do, right? You should be able to also follow up on this thing and maintain. This is the topics which sometimes people overlook while submitting the design or the solution for the case study. And this is like really, really important because we want to see that you are not covering only the development part, but like the other part of the DevOps process as well.
Yes, we are currently discussing the case study, but how would a student reach to that level, or how would an aspirant reach to that level? First of all, do you look at the CVs
Of course. Yeah, we look at the CVs. We
before the
look.
case studies or after the case studies?
No, this happens before. Sorry, I should probably start with the CVs and cover letters. Of course, so CVs and cover letters is the important part of that. So CV should show that you are capable to do the job, right? And I understand for the students who has not a big experience there, it might be a challenging to come up with the things there. But probably you can show some work you have done as a student, like diploma work and the project that you've done as a student. So people on the other side would understand that, okay, you understand this topic, you have enough hard skills to start actually working on that job.
Okay. Do you read cover letters?
To be honest, that depends, right? So sometimes CVs like talk for itself, but cover letters also like really important for the motivation of the job. So people, like, when reading the cover letters, you can understand if what's the motivation for the people for the person to apply to this position, what they are looking for, what is this. So more for the cultural fit, I think the cover letter is an important part of the decision making process, but that comes after the CV or at the same time. So it depends on the flow as well.
Okay. And what importance does recommendation letters have for you?
Recommendation letter. I mean, to be honest, all this time we never reached to the people who had like to ask from their previous colleagues or people who gave them recommendations about this. But recommendation letter is also the important thing, and I think this is also the part which is kind of overlooked during the hiring process these days, because it's important to understand what kind of people is coming to the team. So the cultural fit is one of the most important things. As I already said, right, like the teamwork should be there. If the person has a very brilliant hard skills, but he's not fitting to the team, it can create more harm than good.
Okay, so when an aspirant does not have previous work experience, or at least relevant previous work experience, do you look into the thesis, whether the thesis is relevant or not, the grades of the thesis, how the student performed, or the kind of projects the students did?
Of course. I mean, this is the equivalent of the working experience, right, for the student. So you should look up to all the information you have.
So, what do you do if the thesis is not relevant to the job he or she is applying for?
I mean, this is a question of how, like, what's the level of the expectation you are having from the candidate, right? Like, if because many times people don't apply to the job because they see like there is some requirements they are not fitting, right? And then there are some compromises because it's not possible to find like really ideal candidate there, right? And then it's a matter of the how much person is the different from what you are expecting. Like the candidate is different, not the person, sorry. Like how much the candidate skills are different from what you're expecting on this job. And because like the job is also a long-term relationship, so you are fine to take someone who is not 100% fitting the job, but then they can learn it while doing the job, right? So this is something which call like hiring for attitude. Of course, like the hard skills should be there for a certain level, but then it's a matter of attitude. If people ready to learn, it's fine. If you are not having like 100% match on the like job description with your skills.
I will slip in a very quick question. What if an aspirant has ticked all the check boxes
Mm-hmm.
and then you really do not like the attitude of the person?
I mean, this is the cultural fit part, right? Like it will be really hard to work with the people. I mean, we are talking about liking, like on what, like personal level, or we are talking about having similar values and things like this, because you don't need to, like adore everyone you are work with. But if you have the same values and you really can work together because you share these basic values, then it should be easy to work together. But there are like certain principles. For example, like what about person's ego? What about the way of communication? What about like attitude, right? If the person is not really uh, is not able to communicate in a way which is supposed to be in the team, it will be like really hard for everyone to work together because you will spend so much time by translating the communication into the style between the styles that it creates a lot of friction, and then the team velocity will go down. So it's not about personal like don't like things, right? It's more about like focusing on the work process behind.
Okay, if I may ask, suppose a
Sure.
candidate had a very good round of technical discussions
Mm-hmm.
and you have to reject the person. What can be the likely reasons on which you would reject the applicant after a good round of a technical discussion?
Yeah, I mean we have this kind of rejection actually done because of the cultural fit. You may have a really strong technical candidate who does not fit to the team, and we do not take them, and we did not take them because, as I said, the team velocity will not be good enough. The atmosphere in the team, the working, like the whole working how you say environment will not be that good if the person does not fit culturally to the team. This is like one of the most important things, as important, at least as important as technical.
Is there any other reason why an applicant can get rejected after having a good round of technical discussion?
You mean like salary expectations?
Okay.
I mean, there might be many reasons, right? I mean, at the end, someone can have a better offer, and then they reject the offer, and then there might be also like, I mean, maybe you can clarify what do you mean?
It's pretty dynamic, I believe. There can be a lot of other reasons.
Yeah, I guess so.
Would your evaluation, I know you did not hire working students, but would your evaluation differ if you were hiring a working student?
No, I mean the basic principles are the same. It's just about to find like the substitutes for like experience and this kind of things, right? So what you are looking for basically is to understand what is the candidate's like level of hard skills, what is the candidate's level of soft skills, and maybe remembering the topic of today's conversation. Do they cross the red flags, right? So basically is that if the person has enough hard skills and soft skills are there and culturally the fit is there, and person doesn't cross any red flags in those all of these, right? Then you basically will hire them. Because let's be honest, right? Like companies are struggling finding good candidates. So there is a big hunger in the market. But at the same time, you cannot just take everyone because you need job to be done. And you need not to ruin your teams and companies by bringing people who are having not the same culture. So they are, because this is a very subtle topic, right? It's enough to have someone with another cultural settings, let's say, and then the whole team can become dysfunctional.
Okay. And since you mentioned about the red flags, this is the last major question in this interview today. What are the major red flags that you see as an interviewer? Like, okay, an interviewer, he's an applicant, he's doing certain things, and these are red flags. So, what are the red flags?
Uh, let's maybe divide this topic into two, right? Like the cultural and technical. So like hard skills and soft skills. So
Okay.
culturally speaking, like I already mentioned this once, like this is like the ego. So if you see person is focused on his own, like ego that much, this can be a red flag because the team settings, like the team unit is the important thing. Another red flag could be, like the way of communication. If people is too negative or too strict in his opinions and is not able to a dialogue or a discussion, or if person takes challenges too personally, and like there will be hard times discussing ideas if people are really defensive about their own things, right? And then it will be not that good for the team. So this is like the red flags in the cultural fit. So person should be like kind, open, and easy to communicate, ready to like be challenged and challenge himself, like, or herself. So this is like the red flags there. And from the hard skills, it's a more like, if we look at the code, right? So we sometimes see people send out the code which is just written somehow. There is no style. There is no, like it's really hard to read the code. Even if it's a working code, this can be a red flag. Like if your code is perfectly fine and working, and you even submitted unit tests, because sometimes people even send out like, the code without any testing or without any how to run this code, right? And then it's up to you as a evaluator to find out, oh, how should this code run? What should I feed as an arguments, or how should I feed the arguments and the data and stuff like that? This shows a lot about like the working culture and the code level, and how to say, untidiness, maybe, so like the code style, code quality, can be a red flag even if you have a like perfectly working solution. But for like, because this is how you will work in the team, right? If you, let's say, if you don't respect your peers in a way that you send out this kind of a code which is hard to read, hard to understand, how should we work together in the future? Because this is what you will be doing all the time. If you are sending, which is supposed to be your best output as the interview, right? This kind of code, this is a thing, right? I'm not even talking when code not working or you didn't get like the assignment correctly, or it doesn't cover like the edge cases. It goes only with the happy scenario and doesn't go into like some error checks and all this kind of thing. Because this is also some people overlook. They just send you a like happy path and then this is it. But I'm sorry, like you didn't put enough time into bring up the complete solution, because happy path is one thing, and then when it will be working on the production is another, right? So like you should be able to get all the checkbox ticked, right? Like the error handling, test cases, maybe a little documentation on how to run things, because for example with Python, like it can have many different ways of running things, right? And I should not spend my time on trying to find how your code should run.
Okay, I'll ask a couple of follow-up questions. You mentioned about ego, you mentioned about attitude.
Mm-hmm.
How do you judge these? Like the applicants must do something after which you would say to yourself, this person has a bad attitude, or this person has a lot of ego. How do you understand that?
So for the attitude, I think you will just feel it, because you cannot really like measure it, right? Like when you talk to the people, you already understand like what kind of person they are. Right? And for the ego, you can like, this is a more technical thing, like not technical, but this is more specific. You can pay attention to the language they use, right? So the normal question in interview is like, describe the best project you did, right? Like something you're proud of. And then you can really hear how people describe this as an individual achievement or as a team achievement, right? And then you will understand. So like, okay, I did say several things, but then I will always say like, we did several things, because I didn't do it myself. I did it inside of the team. That was a teamwork. I just participated to it. I get my share done. And maybe I come up with some brilliant idea which really moves forward the team, unblocks something, and this kind of, I can mention it. But the overall, it's using maybe we instead of I that much. This is a like very good indicator, right? So when you see like people talking about what they're proud of and putting themselves in the spotlight instead of the team, one of the things.
Okay, you give case studies for the applicants to solve. Did you ever get into a heated discussion about the solution?
Of
About
course, I mean,
this?
we had a heated discussion even in between ourselves while giving the case study. And the heated discussion is fine if it doesn't cross like personal boundaries, right? And to be honest, like this is the best way I know to challenge the ideas and to understand if they are good or bad. And heated discussions are really nice way of doing things. But the problem is that everyone should feel safe enough to come up with a honest opinion about the topic that is being discussed. And there should be also a culture when you can discuss topics without crossing the personal barrier, right? So, or border. So this is like the thing. And to like in our teams, we had like very heated discussions, and sometimes, I love this example the most. Like maybe I can throw an idea, and then someone really likes the idea, and then I start challenge this idea, and the other person starts to defend this idea. So I'm challenging my own idea because maybe I don't like it anymore. On the second thought, I don't like it. So it's when idea is put on the table, it's not your idea anymore. It's the team idea. And then we have many ideas on the table, and we should try to break them, because if we could break them, then they are bad. If we couldn't break them, possibly they are good. Right? So this is how we can like evaluate the ideas, and without discussion it's not possible.
Okay, I have a lot of questions based on what you just said, but I would like to again ask the same question in the same way. Did you
Yeah.
have a discussion with an applicant when you started challenging the approach and the applicant became very defensive?
I mean, how is applicant different from other engineers in the room?
An
It's
applicant
your future peer, right?
during an interview.
Yeah, but it's your future peer, and I don't know what's the difference there. Like, this is what we try to evaluate. Like, will we able to do this thing in the future in a good way again? I mean, of course, we are trying to, like reduce the stress, because the applicant already is under the stress. So we try to remove the stress. We do some, like the groundwork to be able to jump into the discussion. But then if it goes well, we can actually have a heated discussion, and it doesn't matter if the applicant's idea was good or bad. He was or she was able to defend it or not. The quality of the discussion can be a key point in decision-making process to hire or not to hire. And from this perspective, I see no difference if it's an applicant or a peer.
Okay. You also mentioned about honest responses.
Mm-hmm.
How do you judge honest responses? Because it's a very subjective term.
Yeah, you cannot judge that, but the person who is giving the opinion, if they are not able to do this, then this will not work for a long term, right? If people are holding back their opinion because they not feel safe enough to bring them up, then this kind of relationship is not really healthy and is not really long term. And this is something which, of course, the interview itself, it's like really hard to understand. You cannot really judge this, but in the teamwork, this is the important part.
Okay. And you also put possibly into a code. Quote.
Yeah.
Could you explain more on?
Yeah, because like if you can break the idea, then it's definitely not the good one. If you couldn't break it, maybe you just couldn't break it, right? Maybe it's still bad idea. So it's possibly good idea, but we don't know yet still.
Okay, and with this, we take a couple of questions from the audience. This question is by Ankit Mukherjee. When writing a cover letter, he is often puzzled about what he should focus on. Should he elaborate more on the skills and experiences that are not already on his CV, or the motivation towards the field of work, or should he just express his interest in working in the company?
I would say, but this is like my own thing, right? Other people could have like other opinion, but if you already have it in the CV, do not repeat what you have there, right? Because like what you have in CV, we can go in details in the interview itself. For me, the cover letter is more source of motivation behind why the people want to work here, right? Like why they want to apply to this position and what they would like to find here. Because like I think this is an important thing to mention. And when you apply to the position and you got rejected, sometimes it's not because you are bad, it's just because you didn't fit. And like the employee-employer relationship, they are like a long-term relationship. And yeah, this is something which is really important. So to have this thought in the back of your head that it doesn't evaluate you as a professional. It's just a matter of matching each other sometimes, right? Like sometimes it's a matter of match. Sometimes, of course, like if maybe you don't have enough skills, but that also doesn't mean you are a bad professional or you didn't do enough. You just don't match that position in that moment in time. Because probably, I mean, if you're applying for the mid-level, if they would have a junior position, they would take you, but they need someone who can already start performing without investing too much into the learning process. So this is like the matter of the thing here, and like cover letter should give the answers for the whys and what you are looking for. So the company can also evaluate like what are your goals, where would you like to grow, and if they are able to provide it for you too, because it's an investment in a long-term relationship.
And this gets us to the last question by Aditya Vishwanathan. He asks that if a applicant gets rejection letter, is it okay to respond back to the recruiter asking for a reason for rejection?
That should be perfectly fine. I think like I cannot tell for sure, but I think in Trivago we all actually was providing the reason as well, like with the devices, maybe like focus on this thing or this part of thing, like the technical stuff, because it's really important to get the feedback, because this is a process, right? And the feedback is something which can make you better in the next try. I mean, sometimes it's also like the companies might be like really close to this because of the legal reasons, but I think in most of, like, I would say this should be fine at least to ask them. Like, other thing is they might not answer you, but you should ask for the feedback. That's for sure, because I even use the word should, because I really think it's a must. Like, it's really nice to do this, so you will get the feedback, and this will help you to improve.
I really thank you for all the answers and this interaction in particular. And I think it is time we open the forum to any questions if the audience has any. Shubham has a question.
Hello, Mikayel. First of all, thank you so much for an awesome session. It was an interesting one. Now, coming to the question, I would like to know how the landscape or the responsibilities of the data or cloud engineer has changed over the time in past years.
I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. I hope this was a useful discussion, because I feel that sometimes like my answer could be too broad, but coming to the question. So it's really hard to define what the cloud engineer is. I think right now it's something which is like can be really different from company to company. And what I would like to say, maybe as a general advice, don't look that much on what the title of the job is, because go and read the details, because this is where you will understand what exactly you are supposed to do in that position. Because in some companies, this is called a data engineer, and you expect to do one thing. In other companies, this could be like cloud data engineer, but it's basically the same, because you are doing things on the cloud anyway. Or it might be different, because you are supposed to do more infrastructure than just create a data engineering solution. So it's like really different from company to company, and read the description carefully.
Okay. We would like to take the last question. It's by Irfan Shahzad.
So the question which I would like to ask is that if let's assume we are having an interview, and during that interview, he used to ask the question, and then that question turns into something into an argument, right? Everyone wants to prove their point, right? And if we are in such a collision, how one should react to that particular situation?
Yeah,
Mikhail, you have collisions, you have arguments. How
I
would
mean, this is a really good situation to be in, because this is where like things can be challenged, and what you, as an applicant, what you should be looking into is how the situation is handled. Are there arguments about the idea, or it becomes a personal? Because from your point of view, is this the company where you would like to work if the situation becomes heated and they cross the borders to become personal and things? Because if it's about the opinions, there might be a heated discussion about opinions, and it shouldn't be about proving who is right and who is wrong, but about to find the best solution, right? So if people are able to agree to disagree, this is also something which is a fine outcome, right? Sometimes it's like it's expected that you will disagree but commit as a worker. But if they cross the border in this discussion and arguments, you should also be evaluating if you want to work in these conditions in the future. I don't know if I answered the question.
Okay.
I would
So
just add that anyway, you should be able to provide honest solution. Do not agree to something when you disagree inside. Be honest anyway. This will be useful for you and for them to understand if you want to work with each other, because you are also evaluating them if you want to work with them.
we take the last question? Ankit, go ahead.
Yeah. So my question was that often in interviews, I have faced questions where the recruiters ask me something and they want me to relate it to a past experience. An example would be like if I had a difference of opinion with a supervisor in the past, in my past work or in my project or anything, and how I dealt with the situation. So it may be possible that I have not faced such a situation before. How would I then answer this question? Should I just tell him that I have not faced such a situation, or should I go forward and say, like, if I face such a situation, how would I react to it? How should my response be in such a situation?
I mean, you should obviously say that you haven't faced this situation, and then you can ask if they want you to kind of model this situation right now. So you go to the second part. So you can ask if you should go there or not. And if they say, then yes, you can say like, okay, if I would face this situation, I would do like this, this, this. But I would say, just say them you haven't faced this. And this actually comes also for the technological question. So if they ask question about technology you haven't worked with, just say I haven't worked with this technology, and this should be fine as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I thank you so much, Mikhail, for finding time and for interacting with students and working professionals today.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the session. I think it's really important, to share these experiences, because I think people need to know what's going on there and what are the different approaches. And yeah, I was happy to be here, and yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, you have made it till the end of this amazing conversation. Please check this space out next Wednesday as well. Next week, we publish another episode which you might find useful. We aim to release one new episode every Wednesday for the next 3 weeks on LinkedIn, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, Stitcher, JioSaavn, and a few more platforms. If you find this conversation useful, please share this with your friends and stay connected with us. Thank you for listening.